Hey guys, Aaron here. I'm going to warn you up front, gird your loins, because this is going to be a long video. This is my long time in coming, much asked for, much anticipated Sebenza 21 review. Not just showing you a knife, I'm actually reviewing it. So, I have a lot to talk about, and I'm just letting you know it's going to be a long video. In my opinion, there are few knives on the market that have had the same influence to the knife world at large as the Chris Reeve Sebenza. It was originally developed in 1987, and there were customs made by Chris Reeve. With the design of the knife, Chris invented the Reeve Integral Lock, or as we know, the titanium frame lock. The first production Sebenzas were introduced in 1990 under the name The Original, and then they were followed by the regular in 96, the classic in 2000, and then on its 21st anniversary, the Sebenza 21 in 2008. That's this one. And then in 2012, Chris released the Sebenza 25. Each subsequent Sebenza generation has had minor modifications made, with the exception of the 25, that had some relatively major changes made to the lockup and the blade grind, along with just the overall ergonomics. In my opinion, the Sebenza is the golden standard by which knives should be measured. Chris Reeve and his company have been able to output a consistent, nearly perfect knife in mass for a reasonable price for years. A lot about the Sebenza's beauty has to do with the simplicity of the knife. You're looking at a single backspacer pin, stop pin pivot, and that's all. The pivot assembly is going to be two perforated phosphor bronze bushings, no bearings, nothing complicated. It's just a really elegant solution to a folding knife. The Sebenza comes in several different configurations, as well as Chris Reeve has done a few dealer-specific runs. For example, the Knife Art exclusive, which will have a carbon fiber scale, or the True North Knives Tanto, which is this one. Speaking of that, there are three primary blade shapes that the Sebenza is available in. One will be the traditional drop point, which is probably what you have seen the most. Another will be the Insingo, which is a Warncliffe kind of style. And the last will be the Tanto here. And the Tanto is my favorite. Chris Reeve Knives also offers a number of handle finishes and inlays, custom graphics. You can get Damascus blades. There's a lot of different options for your Sebenza. General specs. Keep in mind this is going to be the Tanto blade, but the general specs of the Sebenza large. This is the large. The small will be a little bit smaller. 8¼ inches overall length, with a blade length of 3½ inches. The blade steel is S35 VN. The blade thickness is 0.120 inches thick. Handle thickness, not including the micarta inlay, is 0.15 inches. The width of the overall knife at the widest point in the clip is 0.685 inches, and the weight of a large Sebenza is 4.4 ounces. So, ergonomically, the Sebenza has a very simplistic handle. The forward finger choil, formed here by the lock bar relief and sort of this peak on the front of the handle, paired with a swell towards the butt end of the knife, act to really lock this knife into your hand and into your grip, especially when paired with this subtle but very effective jimping here towards the top. In doing that, they have negated the need to add any sort of aggressive grip texture. Just a regular bead blasted titanium will do well in terms of holding the knife in place. Now, I have found that the micarta inlay adds a little bit of traction, and I do like that. I find that to be really great. The pocket clip on the Sebenza is one of my favorite features of the entire knife. It really is a work of art, and I've talked about this in the past. But it has 2 points of retention, the primary being here, as with most pocket clips, and the secondary being here, with that little notch. And what that does is that clips over the seam of your pocket and holds the knife in place really effectively, better than any other clip that I've ever experienced. Sorry, I'm working with notes here. Deployment in the lockup is pretty simple. It deploys by means of these thumb studs here. And the lockup is the Reeves integral lock, which is usually, in like the custom knife world, it would be considered late. The normal lockup for a Sebenza is between 50 and 75%. In terms of deploying it, the correct method, according to Chris Reeve Knives, of deploying a Sebenza is to push up and pivot around like that. This knife is not intended to open via a thumb flick, although I do, and I don't think it really causes that much of an issue with your knife. The joke my friends and I have is that every time you thumb flick a Sebenza, Chris Reeve cries a single tear. So, the blade and materials, like I said before, it comes in 3 variations: regular drop point, Insingo, and then this one, the Tanto. I'm not going to go into the merits of each because you can probably figure out which will be best suited for what you use a knife for. I prefer this one because I like having this front edge you can work with, along with a good slicing edge of the primary edge there. The steel choice is interesting because it's S35 VN. And it's interesting because Chris Reeve was one of the makers chosen to work with Crucible to design the steel based on their intended use. A lot of people will say that Chris Reeve runs his knife steels a little soft at, I think it's like 58 Rockwell or so. That might be true. I haven't had too many problems with it, but it's easy to sharpen, it holds an edge well, and just the fact that, I mean, he was able to design the steel to hold up to what he wanted it to with Crucible, which is one of the primary metallurgy firms in the business today. Chris Reeve has said that with the S30V, their cutting test results resulted in 14,000 linear inches of E-flute cardboard before a notable edge wear, which was an improvement over BG42, which got 12,000 linear inches of E-flute cardboard before there was edge wear. So one can only guess that S35VN would be an improvement on that. I haven't seen any data to support that, except for my own in terms of using the knife, and the knife is still very, very sharp. To kind of wrap up the review, I've given you a little bit of history on the knife, talked to you about the ergos and the lockup and deployment, as well as the blade and the blade material. I love the Sebenza. It has become the knife by which I look for comparable quality in a custom knife. If a custom knife is not as good as this knife or better, I question whether or not I'm going to keep it. Few knives live up to this quality. Most fall short. It was built by Chris to be a working knife. Sebenza in Zulu means work. But with that in mind, they still have this refined, gentlemanly nature about them. This isn't a knife that you're going to scare somebody with. It's very elegant, and it doesn't flip and snap and do anything that's going to scare somebody sitting next to you in a restaurant. Technically, it's perfect. Aesthetically, it's perfect. And the manufacturing on it is second to none. I had somebody ask me what made this knife better than their Kershaw Skyline at 10 times the price. And the fact of the matter is, nothing until it counts. Both knives are going to function the same way until critical failure. And this knife's critical failure is going to be way past that of something cheaper. So, do I think it's worth spending the money on? Yeah, I do. But you have to remember that I'm also a knife collector that's justified spending over $1,000 for a knife in the past. So, I think the Sebenza would be a great luxury purchase. It's the one pocket knife you're going to own. It will serve you to no end. In a defensive role, in a utility role, in a food prep role. The Sebenza will fit all the applications that you need, especially with the choice of blade styles for you to choose from. So, I figure I could ramble on for another 5 minutes on how much I love the knife, but I think that's all I'm going to say. This has been a review long coming. I've owned 3 or 4 different Sebenzas, and I have to say that I'm a huge fan. I am also a huge fan of Chris Reeve knives. I've had an Umnumzon, and I just came into the position of a tie lock, and I've had a Menandi before. The Menandi is the only knife I don't care for, and that's just personal preference. But that's it, guys. I'm looking forward to reading your comments. I hope you enjoyed the video and the review, and that's it. Take it easy. Aaron out of here.